A fake HOA cop knocked at my gate. Too bad I'm the actual police chief, and he got booked. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the quiet cul-de-sac of Karen Blossom Lane. My house, a modest two-story with a wraparound porch, stood at the end of the street, its white picket fence gleaming like a postcard from a simpler time. I was in my kitchen, sipping black coffee and flipping through case files, when the sharp rap at my gate jolted me from my thoughts. It wasn't a friendly knock. It was the kind of knock that demanded attention, the kind that screamed, "I'm here to ruin your day." I'm Chief Daniel Harper, head of the Pinewood Police Department. After 20 years on the force, I've heard every knock. Their eyes panicked. Angry, guilty, desperate. This one, it reeked of self-important nonsense. I set my mug down, glanced at the clock. 7:32 p.m. inside. Whoever this was, they were about to learn I don't take kindly to interruptions. I stepped onto the porch, my boots thudding against the wood, and spotted him through the gate. A wiry guy in a cheap navy blazer, clipboard in hand, stood there with the smugness of a mall cop on a power trip. His badge, pinned crookedly to his chest, glinted under the streetlight. Karen Blossom, HOA Enforcement, it read. I raised an eyebrow. HOA Enforcement? In my neighborhood? This was new. "Evening, sir," he called out, his voice dripping with fake authority. "I'm Officer Trent Baxter with the Karen Blossom Homeowners Association. We've had complaints about your property. I'm going to need you to open this gate." I leaned against the porch railing, crossing my arms. Complaints? About what exactly? He flipped a page on his clipboard, squinting like he was reading a script. Unapproved lawn ornaments, excessive noise, and let's see here potential violations of fence height regulations. You've got a real mess on your hands, pal. I almost laughed. My lawn was pristine, my house silent, and my fence? Built to code when I moved in 10 years ago. This guy was either clueless or running a scam. I decided to play along. "Officer Baxter, is it? Mind showing me some ID?" His smirk faltered, but he recovered quickly, pulling out a laminated card with his photo and the words Karen Blossom HOA in garish red font. It looked like something printed at a dollar store. "Right here, Chief," he said, emphasizing the last word like he thought it was cute. "Now, let's get this gate open so I can inspect the premises." I straightened, letting a hint of my own authority creep into my voice. "You're on private property, Baxter. I don't open my gate for strangers with fake badges. Tell me who sent you." His eyes narrowed, and for a split second, I saw the panic of a man who'd been caught. Then he doubled down. "Look, buddy, I don't have time for this. The HOA board misses. Evelyn Carver specifically authorized me to issue fines. You're looking at $500 minimum if you don't comply." Evelyn Carver. Now that was interesting. Evelyn was my next-door neighbor, a retired schoolteacher with a heart of gold who baked me cookies every Christmas. She'd sooner join a biker gang than run an HOA. This guy was digging his own grave, and I was happy to hand him the shovel. "Evelyn, huh?" I said, stepping closer to the gate. "Funny, she never mentioned you. Or an HOA, in fact. I'm pretty sure this neighborhood doesn't have one." Baxter's face twitched, but he pressed on, his voice rising. "You calling me a liar? I've got the paperwork right here. You're in violation, and I'm authorized to." "Authorized by who?" I cut him off, my tone sharp now. "Because I'm Chief Daniel Harper, Pinewood PD, and I know every inch of this town. There's no Karen Blossom HOA, and you, my friend, are trespassing." The color drained from his face. His clipboard slipped slightly in his hands, but he tried to salvage it. "Why, you're bluffing. I've got jurisdiction here." "You can't." "Jurisdiction?" I barked a laugh. "Son, you're standing on my property, waving a fake badge, and impersonating an officer. That's 3 felonies before I even start digging into your con. Now, you've got 2 choices, walk away, or I call my guys and you spend the night in lockup." He froze, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. Then, to my surprise, he dropped the clipboard and bolted, sprinting down the street like his life depended on it. I shook my head, grabbed my phone, and dialed dispatch. "This is Harper. Got a male suspect, mid-30s, navy blazer, fleeing on foot from Karen Blossom Lane. Possible impersonation and fraud. Send a unit to sweep the area." I hung up and retrieved the clipboard from the grass. It was a flimsy thing, covered in handwritten notes and fake letterhead. One page listed violations for half the street misses. Carver's rose bushes, the Wilsons' mailbox, even old Mr. Delaney's bird feeder. Another page had names and addresses, some with dollar amounts scrawled next to them. Extortion, plain and simple. This wasn't just a one-man scam. It had the makings of something bigger. As I scanned the pages, headlights swept across the street. A beat-up sedan pulled up, and out stepped a woman I didn't expect. Clara Delgado, Pinewood's resident busybody and self-proclaimed neighborhood watchdog. Clara was in her 60s, with a perm so tight it could deflect bullets and a penchant for stirring up drama. She clutched a flashlight like a weapon, her eyes wide with excitement. "Chief Harper," she gasped, hurrying over. "I saw that man at your gate. He was here last week, too, harassing poor Evelyn. Said he was going to fine her for her garden gnomes." I told her it was fishy, but she was too scared to argue. I held up the clipboard. "You know anything about this Karen Blossom HOA nonsense?" Clara's face lit up like she'd just won the gossip lottery. "Oh, I knew it was a scam. He's been knocking on doors for weeks, telling folks they owe hundreds for made-up violations. I followed him once, saw him get into a van with some other fella. Shady types, both of them." "Clara," I said, pinching the bridge of my nose, "why didn't you report this sooner?" She shrugged, unapologetic. "I wanted proof. Besides, I figured you'd handle it, being the chief and all." I sighed. Clara's meddling was a headache, but her tip about the van was useful. If Baxter had a partner, this could be a bigger operation than I thought. I thanked her barely and sent her home before she started interrogating me. Back inside, I poured another coffee and sat at the kitchen table, spreading out the clipboard's pages. Something about this felt personal. Why target my street? Why my house? The next morning, I was at the station by 6 a.m., the clipboard tucked under my arm. My deputy, Sarah Nguyen, was already at her desk, her dark hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail. Sarah was sharp, with a dry sense of humor that kept the squad grounded. She glanced up as I dropped the clipboard in front of her. "Morning, Chief," she said, eyeing the mess. "What's this?" "Your new scrapbook." "Evidence," I said. "Some clown named Trent Baxter showed up at my place last night, claiming to be HOA enforcement. Tried to scam me with fake violations. He's got a partner, maybe more. I need you to run his name and cross-check these addresses." Sarah flipped through the pages, her brow furrowing. "Karen Blossom, HOA, that's bold. I live 2 blocks from you, and I've never heard of it. You think he's local?" "Doubt it," I said. "His ID was amateur, but the hustle's too smooth for a first-timer. Check for prior impersonation, fraud, extortion, and see if we've got anything on a van linked to suspicious activity." She nodded and got to work, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Meanwhile, I headed to the precinct to brief the team. If Baxter was running a scam in Pinewood, they'd make sure every resident knew to lock their doors and report anything suspicious. But as the day wore on, a nagging feeling settled in my chest. This wasn't just about money. Baxter had come to my gate, dropped Evelyn's name, and run when I pushed back. He knew who I was, or he was desperate enough to think he could bluff me. By noon, Sarah had a hit. "Trent Baxter, 34, popped up in the system," she said, sliding a printout across her desk. "Petty theft, fraud, and get this, impersonating a city official in 2 other counties. No current address, but he's got a known associate, one Marcus Tate. They were busted together for a fake utility scam in Raleigh last year. Tate drives a red van, registered in Virginia." I scanned the printout, my pulse quickening. "Good work. Put out an APB on both. And get me everything we have got on Tate." As Sarah dove back into the database, I stepped into my office and closed the door. The clipboard sat on my desk, its pages taunting me. I picked up the page with my address, the words, "Chief Harper $1,000,000 scrawled in red ink. This wasn't random. Someone had sent Baxter to my house, knowing I was the chief. But who? And why? That afternoon, I drove to Evelyn's house, a quaint bungalow overflowing with roses. She answered the door in a floral apron, her silver hair pinned back, her face pale with worry. "Daniel," she said, clutching my arm. "Clara told me you had trouble last night. That awful Mona came here, too. Said my gnomes were a hazard. I almost paid him." I patted her hand gently. "You did nothing wrong, Evelyn. We're handling it." "Did he say anything else? Mention anyone?" She frowned, thinking. "He said something about cleaning up the neighborhood for new owners. I thought it was odd nobody's selling here, are they?" My gut twisted. New owners? Pinewood was a sleepy town, not some gentrified hotspot. But I thanked Evelyn and promised to keep an eye out, then headed back to my truck. As I drove, Clara's words echoed Baxter in a van, another man in the shadows. I needed to find them before they hurt someone. That night, I was back at my house when my radio crackled. It was Sarah, her voice tight. "Chief, we got Baxter. Picked him up at a motel off Route 17. He's in interrogation now. You want in?" I grabbed my jacket. "I'm there in 10. The Pinewood police station was buzzing when I arrived. Baxter sat in interrogation room 2, his hands cuffed to the table, his bravado gone. He looked smaller now, his cheap blazer wrinkled, his eyes darting nervously. I took a seat across from him, tossing the clipboard onto the table with a slap. "Evening, Trent," I said, my voice low. "You got a lot to say at my gate last night. Care to try again?" He licked his lips, his gaze flickering to the clipboard. "I don't know what you're talking about, man. I was just doing my job." "Your job?" I leaned in, my eyes hard. "You impersonated an officer, tried to extort half my neighborhood, and ran when I called your bluff. That's not a job, Trent. That's a rap sheet. Who's Marcus Tate? And who's paying you?" His jaw clenched, but he stayed silent. I slid the clipboard closer, tapping the page. "Your notes say $1,000 for me. Why me, Trent? Who told you to target the chief?" His eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought he'd crack. Then he slumped back, muttering, "You don't know nothing, man. It was just a gig." I was about to press him when the door swung open. Sarah stepped in, her face grim. "Chief, you need to see this." She handed me a tablet with a grainy security FIDA red van parked outside the station, a man slipping out and vanishing into the shadows. Marcus Tate. My blood ran cold. Tate was here, watching us. This wasn't just a scam, it was a setup. But for what? And why? The interrogation room smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Trent Baxter slumped in his chair, his cuffed hands twitching as I stared him down. The tablet Sarah handed me burned a hole in my mind. Marcus Tate, his partner, had been outside the station, slipping into the night like a ghost. This wasn't just a two-bit scam anymore. It was a game, and I was the target. "Trent," I said, my voice calm but laced with steel, "you're in deep. Tate's out there, and he's not coming to save you. Tell me who's pulling the strings, or I'll make sure you're booked for every charge I can throw at you." Baxter's eyes darted to the one-way glass, like he expected someone to burst in and save him. "I don't know nothing, man. It was just me and Marcus, freelancing. Easy money. Easy money." I slid the clipboard across the table, pointing to my name. "You targeted the police chief. That's not freelancing, that's suicide. Who gave you my name?" He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Look, it wasn't personal. We got a list, names, addresses, dollar amounts. Some guy paid us to shake people up, make him pay or sell. That's it. Sell." My pulse quickened. Evelyn's words echoed, "New owners, cleaning up the neighborhood. Who's buying? And don't lie to me, Trent. I've got your prints, your priors, and a whole town ready to ID you." He hesitated, then muttered, "I don't know his name. Marcus handled the deal. Said it was some big-shot developer, wanted the whole street for condos or something. We just did the dirty work." Condos. Pinewood was no metropolis, just a quiet town with good schools and better people. But land was cheap, and developers had been sniffing around for years. Someone was trying to scare my neighbors into selling low, and they'd sent Baxter to my gate to test me. Or worse, to take me down. I stood, grabbing the tablet. "You're staying here, Trent. If you're smart, you'll start talking before Tate does." I nodded to Sarah, who was waiting by the door. "Get him processed. And pull every real estate record for Karen Blossom Lane. I want to know who's been buying or trying to." Outside the room, Sarah fell into step beside me. "You think it's a land grab?" "Has to be," I said, my jaw tight. "Baxter's a pawn, Tate's the muscle, but someone's bankrolling this. Check for shell companies, out-of-state investors, anything tied to development." She nodded, already pulling out her phone. "What about Tate?" "He's in the wind." "Not for long," I said. "Put out an APB on that van. And get a unit to watch Evelyn's Placessa target, too." Back in my office, I spread the clipboard's pages across my desk. Names, addresses, dollar amounts, me neighbors, my friends, reduced to numbers in a con. But one detail nagged at me. Baxter's panic when I'd mentioned Evelyn. He'd used her name like a shield, but why her? She was no threat, just a sweet old lady with a garden full of gnomes. unless she knew something she hadn't told me. The next morning, I was back at Evelyn's, the sun barely up. She answered the door in her robe, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Daniel, what's wrong? Did you catch him? We got Baxter, I said, stepping inside. Her living room was a time capsule, doilies, family photos, a faint smell of lavender. But I need your help. You said Baxter mentioned new owners. Did he say anything else? A name, a company? Evelyn sank onto her couch, wringing her hands. I didn't think it mattered at the time. He was so aggressive, I just wanted him gone. But he dropped a name. Pinnacle Meridian. Said they were taking over the street. Pinnacle Meridian. I jotted it down, my gut churning. You did good, Evelyn. Stay inside today, okay? I'll have a patrol car swing by. As I left, my phone buzzed. Sarah, with a breakthrough. Chief, Pinnacle Meridian's a front, she said, her voice urgent. Buried in layers of LLCs, but I traced it to a developer in Richmond. Roland Carver. Ring any bells? Carver. My blood ran cold. Roland Carver, Evelyn's brother. I'd met him once, years ago, at a family reunion Evelyn had hosted. He was a slick real estate mogul, all smiles and empty promises. Evelyn had called him her biggest regret, hinting at a betrayal she'd never explained. Now he was back, using her name to scam her neighbors. But why target me? Give me everything on Roland, I said. And find Tate. He's the link. That afternoon, I dug into Roland Carver's past. He'd made millions flipping properties, but his empire was crumbling: lawsuits, bad investments, a reputation for strong-arming homeowners. Karen Blossom Lane was prime land, close to a new highway project. If he could force us out, he'd turn a fortune. But he'd made a fatal mistake. He'd come for me. By evening, we had a lead on Tate. His van was spotted at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. I geared up, calling in Sarah and 2 SWAT officers. The warehouse was a hulking shell of rusted metal, its windows dark. We moved in silently, flashlights cutting through the gloom. Inside, we found the van empty, but stuffed with fake HOA badges, clipboards, and stacks of cash. Chief, Sarah whispered, pointing to a door in the back. Light flickered beneath it. I nodded, signaling the team to flank me. We burst in, guns drawn, and found Marcus Tate hunched over a laptop, his face lit by the screen. He froze, his hands shooting up. Don't move, I barked. Hands where I can see him, Tate. You're done. He sneered but complied, his eyes cold. You're too late, Harper. The deal's already in motion. What deal? I stepped closer, my gun steady. Who's Roland Carver to you? Tate laughed, a bitter sound. Roland? He's the money. I'm just the guy who makes problems go away. You should have paid up, Chief. Would have been easier. Sarah cuffed him while I seized the laptop. Its screen showed emails between Tate and Roland, detailing the scam fake violations, threats, even plans to frame me for corruption if I pushed back. Roland had bankrolled it all, using Evelyn's name to mask his involvement. But one email caught my eye, sent from an anonymous account. Take out Harper first. He's the key. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about land. Roland wanted me gone personally. But why? Back at the station, Tate clammed up, but the laptop was a goldmine. We had enough to nail him and Baxter for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. Roland was next, but he was slippery, already out of state. I called in favors with the FBI, who promised to track him down. For now, my neighborhood was safe, but the cost was heavier than I'd expected. The next day, I went to Evelyn, dreading the conversation. She deserved the truth, but it would break her heart. I found her in her garden, tending her roses, her face soft with worry. Daniel, she said, standing, is it over? I took a deep breath. Evelyn, we got the men who targeted you. But there's more. It was Roland, your brother. He was behind it all. Her face crumpled, tears welling. Roland? No, he wouldn't. I'm sorry, I said, my voice thick. He used your name, your home, to scare people into selling. He wanted the land for profit. She sank onto a bench, clutching her gardening gloves. He was always greedy, even as a boy. But to do this to me, she looked up, her eyes searching mine. Why you, Daniel? Why your house? I hesitated, then told her about the email. Her gasp was sharp, pained. Oh, Daniel, I think I know why. Years ago, Roland tried to buy this street. I stopped him, told the town he'd cheated families before. He never forgave me. And you're the law here. He must have seen you as the one who'd fight back. Her words hit like a punch. Roland's grudge wasn't just business, it was family, twisted into revenge. I sat beside her, letting her cry, my own chest tight. I'd protected my town, but I couldn't shield Evelyn from this betrayal. Weeks later, Roland was arrested in Miami, his empire collapsing under federal charges. Baxter and Tate took plea deals, spilling everything to save their skins. Karen Blossom Lane healed, but the scars lingered. Evelyn stopped gardening, her roses wilting. Clara, true to form, turned the scandal into neighborhood legend, but even she spoke softer around Evelyn. As for me, I stood on my porch one evening, coffee in hand, staring at my gate. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. Roland's email haunted me, take out Harper first. I'd been a target, not just for my badge, but for standing in the way of greed. And Evelyn, the kindest soul I knew, had paid the price for her brother's sins. I set my mug down, the weight of it all settling in. Pinewood was safe, but safety came at a cost. I'd keep fighting for this town, for people like Evelyn, but I'd never forget how close we'd come to losing it all to a fake cop at my gate. What do you think? Was Daniel right to pursue the truth, even knowing it would hurt Evelyn? Should Baxter and Tate have been offered plea deals, or did they deserve harsher punishment?